Help sick and injured children by donating to my Extra Life campaign. Link in the description and pinned comment. All proceeds go to Children's Wisconsin. If we reach $1,000, I'll make my Discord server public. I got big balls. I got big... Well, I'm not wrong, am I? It's a simple idea, a ball and a paddle. It's been applied to video games as early as the Magnavox Odyssey, the first ever video game console, as well as Pong, one of the first widely successful arcade games. Later on, the idea would be expanded to, what if Pong, but single player? It started with Ramtech's Clean Sweep in 1974, and more prominently with Atari's 1976 title, Breakout. A grid of blocks. It's so simple. And successful, might I add. And with success comes copycats. However, it would be Taito who would take the brick breaker genre to its next logical step with Arkanoid. Combining a variety of new innovations with a distinctive sci-fi theme and iconic sound design, Arkanoid would become one of Taito's most recognizable IPs, alongside the likes of Space Invaders and Bubble Bobble. In fact, this year we're getting a new Arkanoid game with a Battle Royale mode, something which I called over a year ago. Just call me Nostradamus. So let's take a look at the evolution of brick breaker games as we go over the history of the legendary classic, Arkanoid. So the story behind the game starts in the mid-80s, and the block breaker genre was beginning to rebound after a slump earlier in the decade. Hoping to capitalize on this momentum, Taito decided to hold an in-office competition to decide who would design a new game for the genre. The winners were Akira Fujita and Hiroshi Onijust Tsujino from the Yokohama Research Institute, and it was decided that their ideas would be fusion summoned into a new game. Fujita was in charge of planning, while Tsujino took care of the level design and graphics, and based the game's sci-fi aesthetic on the classic movie Tron, which he was a fan of. Of course, there was already a Tron arcade game by that point. 2, in fact. Remind me to cover those games sometime. 2 other programmers modified one of Taito's existing arcade boards for the new game. Sprites outside of the blocks were designed using drawings of 3D models, and Hisayoshi Ogura, founder of Taito's house band Zuntara, composed the music. Sadly, the game was yet another early victim of crunch culture, as the deadlines were tighter than Scrooge's purse strings. Tsujino went on to describe the schedule as murderous. And this is why it's encouraging to see game devs start to unionize. Arkanoid was released in Japan in July of 1986, with the US release later that year being handled by publisher Romstar. So let's pop a quarter in the slot and start this baby up! Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Arkanoid. Its continuing mission, to explore strange new... And that was no doubt a warning shot by Paramount. Nah, just kidding. It was the days when a game's plot could be explained in just a few sentences. So the game is named after a spaceship that's exploring the cosmos, when all of a sudden, some enemy comes out of nowhere and blasts a hole in the hull. That must have either been one hell of a laser or one weak-ass spaceship. You'd think it was made by Palpatine's Empire. His superweapons have a history of bad design. So just before the ship collapsed, the crew managed to launch an escape vessel called Vaus, which looks conveniently like a breakout paddle, only for the ship to get sucked into a dimensional rift. And the only way to escape is to ape. And by ape, I mean play Breakout. And I just over-explained the plot of a goddamn Breakout game. I need help. So at first glance, this looks a little different from the original Breakout, just with prettier graphics. Move the paddle to keep the ball in play as it breaks the blocks using the game's analog dial, clear the stage by breaking them all, and don't lose the ball or you go boom. You can also affect the angle of the ball depending on where it hits the paddle as normal. But the elements that solidified this game as a true evolution of the genre became apparent very quickly. First off, and most significantly, are the addition of power-ups. They come in the form of capsules that drop from shattered blocks and enhance your ship in various ways. Unfortunately, they don't stack. Pick up one and it replaces the previous one. There are 7 in all, and they are as follows. The red L gives you a laser, which is pretty self-explanatory. Pew 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 and boom go the blocks. The blue E will extend the length of your Faust and give you more room to work with. The green C will allow you to catch the ball and allow you to reposition it for another launch. The orange S will slow down the ball, which really helps since the ball naturally gets faster the longer it's in play. Multiple capsules will stack the slow effect. The violet B capsule will break open the side wall and allow you to escape to the next level without having to ape. The light blue D is the subject of many crass and immature jokes, and I know that there's at least one of you out there who's thinking about that. I see you! Real talk though, picking up that capsule will disrupt the ball and split it into 3. There's no penalty for losing the 2 extra balls. Interestingly enough, as long as there's more than one ball in play, other power-ups will not appear. This is the only power-up which does that, by the way. Last, but certainly not least, is the gray P. This is an extra life, and naturally, they're rare. You're more likely to get an extra life on a point bonus. On a side note, the blocks give you points depending on their color, even though they mostly take 1 hit. Mostly. That's another evolution from bog standard Breakout, silver bricks, and gold bricks. Silver bricks require multiple hits, starting with 2 and tacking on another every 8 levels. They're worth 50 points times the level. At least you can break those. There are also golden bricks which are indestructible. Thankfully they don't count towards clearing the stage. Last but not least, there are enemies which occasionally appear. They disappear when hit by a ball or the Faust. They only exist to get in your way. Elements like these may seem obvious by today's standards, but back in '86, this was a major evolution for the brick breaker genre. Yeah, things came a long way from just the same array of bricks and nothing else. First off, the power-ups were really useful in helping you accomplish your demolition mission. At the same time, it also added another layer of strategy. Do you grab the new power-up, or do you stick with the one you have? Also, the variety of blocks, both in colors and durability, were a boon to stage design. There were 32 main stages in all, each with a distinct arrangement, whether it be a more normal pattern of bricks or a few that were based on objects, including one which looks like a space invader. In order to clear these stages, you had to have good spatial awareness and know how the ball interacts with the Faust to get the proper angle of clearance. Now you start with the standard 3 lives and can earn extra lives with enough points, but depending on the dip switch settings, you can continue after running out of lives. With one exception. That would be the final stage, where you face the cosmic horror behind this rift. It looks like an Easter Island statue, and its name is Doe. 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 So being a boss, it does fight back, and now we see where Andros got it. In order to win, you need to keep the ball in play long enough for it to hit Doe 16 times, all while avoiding Doe's attacks. And if you run out of lives here, it's game over. This is do or die. But if you succeed, you see the game's equally minimalistic ending, where time reverses itself just enough so that the attack that wrecked the mothership never happened. As one does. Thanks to its addictive gameplay and the improvements it made on the Breakout formula, Arkanoid was a massive success. It ranked as the highest-selling cabinet in Japan in 1987, as well as the best-selling conversion kit in the US for that year. It was the next natural evolution of the brick breaker genre, and as such, inspired a lot of games that came after. Not to mention, it would end up being ported to multiple home platforms. Fun fact, the developer of the DOS port, Novalogic, would go on to make several combat simulation games, including the controversial Delta Force, Black Hawk Down. Arkanoid itself would also spawn a franchise spanning several games across multiple platforms. The first was actually developed exclusively for American markets, by Taito's American branch. That would be Tournament Arkanoid, released in 1987 and published by Romstar. By today's standards, this would be more in line with a DLC pack than a full-on sequel. Actually, ROM hack would be a more accurate comparison. The gameplay is a direct copy of the original, with the only differences being the color of the ship, for some reason, and more importantly, a whole new set of stages. And you know how Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, as a direct sequel to the original, was comparatively unfair in its level design? Tournament Arkanoid was the same way. Take a look at a few of these levels, for example. See the kind of space you need to fit that ball through? You basically have no leeway in these levels, and they aren't even necessarily in the later stages. Needless to say, this game wasn't looked upon as fondly as the original. I guess it's not surprising that it never left American arcades. Go ahead and emulate it if you want, but I hope you have the patience and precision of a surgeon. The first actual sequel would be released in arcades that same year, in the form of Arkanoid Revenge of Doe. And what better way to seek revenge than to commandeer a dimension-crossing warship?
Hey, when it's time for revenge, you gotta attack aggressively, am I right?
So now one of Arkanoid's sister ships has launched a new Vouse in order to take down the threat from the inside out. But there are new challenges in the way of doing that. First off, there are regenerating bricks that are identified by the notches in them. Break one, and a new one generates in its place shortly after. Thankfully, like the gold bricks, they don't count towards clearing a level. Also, there are some bricks that will move left and right when the bricks next to them are destroyed. This makes timing even more important. The main difference, though, is in the level structure. When you clear a level, you can choose left or right, determining the next stage, with the exception of the 1st and 18th levels, and the 2 boss levels 17 and 34, which contain, respectively, a new mini-boss which spawns small enemies, and the final battle with Doe and the alien which revived them. Meanwhile, you've got a few new power-ups to help you out. The dark blue twin creates a duplicate Vouse to give you more area to cover, the dark green illusion creates a ghostly trail behind you which can rebound the ball, the white end capsule splits the ball into 3 balls which regenerate when one is lost, the purple mega ball allows your ball to smash through every breakable brick in its path, and the flashing capsule triggers one of 5 random effects, all but one of which are beneficial. Just be aware of the black R capsule which will shrink your Vouse. Of course, you can earn double points with a smaller ship, but trust me, unless you're an expert, the trade-off is not worth it. Revenge of Doe would be the last we'd see of this series for about 10 years, when we'd see 2 new games released in that same year. For the Super Nintendo, there was Arkanoid, Doe It Again. This game was released in the twilight of the Super NES, with the N64, Saturn, and PlayStation already out. Even with that said, I played this game back in the day and it was definitely worth it. Given the style of Arkanoid, it's no surprise that this game was one of the few titles that used the Super NES mouse. Yeah, that thing had a use outside of Mario Paint, isn't that something? Aside from the 99 levels and 3 unique bosses which cycled every 11 stages, there was a head-to-head mode, and even a level editor, something that a modern version of the game would have benefited from. In the arcades, there was Arkanoid Returns, which would be the last Arkanoid game to grace arcades. The big gimmick in this one? Co-op play. 2 players could team up and Vouse their way through the game's 50 levels. Oh wait, Doe It Again had that too. Wait, how come we don't fight Doe? Well, guess what? Those 50 levels are only half the game. Doe is at the end of level 100, and the second half is a lot harder. And to even play those 50 levels,
you have to enter a cheat code.
Thankfully, the PS1 port has all 100 levels in one go, as well as a level editor similar to Doe It Again, an extra mode with new levels, and squash mode? Okay, I need to look into this. Okay, so it's a 2-player competitive mode where players take turns hitting the ball, which is really hard to demonstrate with just 1 player. Later in 2007 in Japan and 2008 worldwide, we'd get Arkanoid DS, which contains standard clear and mission modes, 4-player multiplayer, a bunch of customization options, and even a paddle controller in Japan. Why does Japan get all the cool stuff? 2009 would see the release of Arkanoid Live on Xbox Live Arcade and Arkanoid Plus on WiiWare. This was basically bog-standard Arkanoid with multiplayer modes. And then in 2017, Arkanoid got weird. Given the sci-fi theming of Arkanoid, what do you think would be the craziest thing Taito would do with it?
Okay, who here said crossing over with Space Invaders? You lie!
Yeah, who would have thought that they'd find a way to mix a Brick Breaker game with a classic arcade shooter? I'm sorry, excuse me. The classic arcade shooter. And on top of that, it was a mobile title. Don't worry, there weren't any microtransactions, it was a paid title. Yeah, in this game, instead of just breaking blocks, you're also breaking invaders' faces. You could also unlock new characters by completing levels and earning mission stars. These characters ranged from across Taito's library, like Bubble Bobble, Darius, and even more obscure titles like the Fairyland Story and Psychic Force. This game would later come to console by means of the Space Invaders Invincible Collection and Space Invaders Forever, in case you are interested in anything that unusual. And now we come to today, and the upcoming release of Arkanoid Eternal Battle. And they certainly are going for the 80s wave style here. Being developed by French studio Pasta Games and published by Microids with licensing from Taito, they're going in with the arcade vibe here, with the overall techno aesthetic, and they're even including the original with an arcade cabinet frame. But the most exciting prospect as far as I'm concerned is the 25-player Battle Royale mode, Eternal Battle. If previous retro franchise Battle Royale games are something to go by, we're in for some serious ball-busting competition. Hey, you gotta do something to stand out from all the imitators. And believe you me, there are a lot of imitators.
Of course, when you're successful, you're bound to have other people try the same thing. And there are plenty of other games that have their own spin on the block breaker formula. Hell, even Kirby had a Breakout-style spin-off. And it's even easier when you're basing it off of something so simple. But then again, simplicity is a launch pad for creativity. As long as you have the balls. I'm the Quarter Guy, and until next time, the arcade is closed.
You know how nowadays we've forgotten the rest of plenty of old sayings? Like, we all know about curiosity killed the cat, but we forget about satisfaction bringing it back. Or more importantly, we say jack of all trades, master of none all the time, when we conveniently leave off the part about being better than a master of one. Hey, if someone knows how to use a lot of weapons, they are dangerous. Next time, top 10 versatile fighters in video games. It's game time! Hey everyone, QG here. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Feel free to check out my Twitter and my Twitch streams, and consider supporting me through Patreon, and donating to my Extra Life campaign to support Children's Wisconsin. Thanks for watching.